In a mystical ancient forest where legends are born, the morning sun begins to pierce through the giant canopy, waking up the world with golden light. We descend slowly from the heavens, passing through layers of emerald leaves and misty air, discovering a hidden paradise where time seems to stand still. Tiny dust particles dance in the shafts of light like miniature stars, creating a magical atmosphere in this untouched wilderness of towering trees and secrets. Meet Arrow, a weaver bird with vibrant blue feathers, whose talent for crafting nests is known throughout the woods. Yet his heart seeks something more. His beak moves with incredible precision, interlocking soft blades of green grass. But today his mind is wandering far beyond the familiar branches of home. Around him, the forest is alive with the joyful songs of his companions. Yet Arrow stops his work to gaze at the distant, glowing horizon. Deep down, he feels a pull toward greatness, a desire for a masterpiece that would outshine everything else, leaving the ordinary world far behind him. One afternoon, Arrow flies beyond his usual territory, drawn to a hidden valley where the light seems to concentrate in a spectacular display of gold. As he enters the valley, he discovers the fabled golden grass. It sways in the wind, reflecting the sun with a brilliance that blinds the eye. It was more beautiful than anything he had ever seen. Rare, shining, and precious, it promised a glory that ordinary grass could never hope to achieve. He thought to himself, "If I build my nest with this, I will finally have the most perfect home in the entire world." Envied by all, he reached out and touched a strand. It was cold, stiff, and surprisingly heavy, yet its beauty blinded him to the challenges it might bring. With great effort, he plucked the first shimmering strand, his mind already racing with visions of a golden palace perched high within the forest trees. He flew back across the woods, the weight of the gold straining his wings, but his excitement kept him moving forward toward his ambitious goal. His friends called out, inviting him to share a feast of ripe berries, but Arrow ignored them, consumed by his new, shiny obsession with perfection. He arrived at his branch and cast aside his old green materials. The journey toward the perfect nest had begun, and there was no turning back. Day turned into night, and the moon replaced the sun, but Arrow did not rest. He worked tirelessly, driven by a growing addiction to the shimmer. The golden strands were hard and unforgiving. They scratched his beak and bruised his wings, but he refused to stop, believing the pain was worth it. Every movement was a struggle. What used to be a labor of love had become a grueling battle against a material that refused to bend. When the sun rose again, he was still there. He had forgotten to eat and forgotten the warmth of the sun, chasing a dream of perfection. His friends landed nearby, offering him food and water, worried by his frantic pace and the strange cold light emanating from his growing golden home. "Go away," he chirped sharply. "I have no time for games or food. I am building the greatest nest this forest has ever seen. Leave me." The nest grew larger, a brilliant sculpture of gold that dominated the tree. It was a marvel to look at, yet it felt strangely out of place. There was no soft moss to line the floor, no downy feathers for warmth, just the cold, hard reality of perfection woven into a rigid, golden cage. He was chasing perfection, but he was losing his peace, his health, and his connection to the very nature that had once given him joy. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. Dark, heavy clouds rolled over the forest, swallowing the sun and bringing a chilling wind that whispered of an approaching storm. Arrow stood back to admire his work. It was finished. A masterpiece of light and gold, standing defiant against the darkening world around his chosen branch. But as he stepped inside to rest his weary bones, he realized the truth. The nest was perfect to look at, but impossible to live in. It was a golden cage he had built for himself. Every time he moved, the sharp edges poked him, and the cold metal sapped his warmth. The wind intensified, howling through the branches. Unlike the flexible grass of his neighbors, his golden nest was too stiff to move with the trees. The weight was too much. The ancient branch, which had supported him for years, began to groan and splinter under the unnatural burden of the gold. Fear finally replaced his pride. He realized that the very thing he thought made him superior was the very thing that was now weighing him down. He looked across to the other birds. Their simple nests of dry grass were swaying gracefully, dancing with the storm rather than fighting against its power. Sometimes our pursuit of the extraordinary blinds us to the wisdom of the simple. His golden dream was fast becoming a terrifying and heavy nightmare. Then came the lightning. A flash of white light split the sky, followed by a roar of thunder that shook the very foundations of the forest. With a sickening crack, the branch gave way. The golden nest, heavy and unyielding, began its final descent toward the dark forest floor far below. Arrow watched in slow motion as his days of hard labor and his dreams of perfection tumbled through the air. A falling star of broken gold. It hit the ground with a dull thud, shattering into useless pieces. The perfection he had sacrificed everything for was now nothing more than scattered debris. Arrow had escaped just in time, but he stood shivering and alone, watching his masterpiece vanish into the mud and the shadows of the storm. He sought shelter under a wide leaf, cold and hungry. He had no home, no food, and his pride had been washed away by the rain. Through the curtain of rain, a small figure appeared. It was one of the friends he had pushed away, flying through the storm to find him. Without a word of reproach, his friend shared a piece of fruit. In that simple act of kindness, Arrow felt a warmth that gold could never provide. "Come with me," his friend chirped. Arrow followed, leaving the shattered gold behind, moving toward the true heart of the forest where his friends lived. Inside the simple grass nest, the air was warm and smelled of earth. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't shiny, but it was safe and incredibly soft. As he settled into the moss, Arrow finally understood. Happiness isn't about being perfect or superior. It is about being enough and being truly at peace. The next morning, the forest was reborn. A vibrant rainbow arched over the trees, and the air was fresh with the scent of new beginnings and hope. The sunlight returned, but this time it didn't reflect off cold metal. It sparkled on the morning dew, celebrating the natural beauty of the living woods. Arrow joined his friends, working together to gather the softest grass and the most resilient vines. He was no longer working alone for his own glory. He dived into the work with a new kind of passion. He dived into a craft that respected the tree, the wind, and the comfort of his own body. He sang as he worked, his voice joining the forest choir. The obsession with perfection was gone, replaced by the simple joy of creating something meaningful. The new nest was humble and harmonious. It was light enough for the branch and flexible enough for the breeze. A true home for a bird. Life is a balance between ambition and peace. Arrow had found his balance, realizing that the simplest things are often the most precious treasures we have. Don't let this search for the golden nest make you forget the simple joy of the forest. Perfection is a trap. True balance is the only freedom.